آینده ایران در دستان شماست. مردمی.
انگیزه شکلگیری نهاد مردمی از سوی بخشی از کنشگران سیاسی در درون و برون از ایران فرایندی است برخاسته از خروش ملی و جنبش سبز آزادیخواهی مردم میهنمان بر ضد حکومتگران و نظام بیدادگری که در 31 سال گذشته با سرکوب و زیر پاگذاری حقوق مدنی و ملی ایرانیان موجودیت اشغالگر، ویرانگر و بیگانه خود را بر ملت ایران تحمیل کرده است.
این نهاد با بررسی علل شکست‌ها و ناکامی‌های مبارزاتی مخالفین جمهوری اسلامی در 3 دهه گذشته با بهره‌گیری از سیستم‌های تکنولوژی نوین رسانه‌ای، کامپیوتری و اینترنت به دور از هر گونه پیش‌داوری‌های فرقه‌ای ایدئولوژیک و نفاق آفرین
شخصیت‌ها، احزاب، گروه‌ها و کنشگران سیاسی آزادیخواه و ضد رژیم را برای پشتیبانی از جنبش گسترده مردم ایران به گرد هم فرا می‌خواند تا به کمک یکدیگر این حلقه‌های از هم گسیخته را به هم پیوند داده تا بتوانیم با سازماندهی تشکل‌ها و نیروهای سیاسی همپا و پیوسته به این دوران سیاه تاریخ میهنمان پایان دهیم.
Very special program today. We are going to be talking with Dr. Iman Foroutan about a project he has undertaken called The New Iran. And first, let me tell you a bit about Dr. Foroutan. He is CEO of Virtual NGO LLC and Opus One Corporation. He's a graduate of the University of California in electrical and computer engineering. He has over 25 years of professional experience as well as several U.S. patents. Dr. Foroutan's been a lecturer at the University of California, a top manager at the Hughes Aircraft Company, and he's also served many years as the information systems consultant to the United States Air Force and Navy. He's founder of the Iran of Tomorrow project, and he's one of the founding members of the Iran of Tomorrow movement, as well as SOS Iran. Dr. Foroutan has dedicated his volunteer time as well as his personal finances to the cause of democracy in Iran. And since 2009, Dr. Foroutan has dedicated himself to the development, launch, and the continuous progress of the new Iran, where he currently serves as the chairman and spokesperson. And today is a very special simulcast. Not only are Conversation Crossroad listeners hearing our show through Blog Talk Radio, but we are on simulcast to Iran. The Iranian people are hearing and seeing this broadcast on Iranian TV, and you can log on to thenewiran.com and click on in the bottom right corner for live broadcast, and you will see this broadcast as well as hear it, and you will be listening along with the people of Iran. And Dr. Iman Foroutan, I want to welcome you to Conversation Crossroad.
Grierson, thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to say hello to all your listeners around the country. And again, one more time, thank you for giving this opportunity to the Iranian people who are listening and watching right now live. It's 12:30 midnight in Iran. And if you don't mind, if I may only say one sentence in Farsi to them, because they may not know exactly what the framework of this show is. If I may do that, it will only take a few seconds in Farsi.
Please do.
هموطنان عزیز، در سراسر جهان ایمان فروتن هستم. برنامه زنده سیمای نهاد مردمی از تلویزیون پارس، همونجوری که خدمتتون عرض کرده بودیم، الان یک مصاحبه زنده داریم با یک رادیوی بسیار پرشنونده در آمریکا. این مصاحبه به زبان انگلیسی خواهد بود، ولی بعداً ترجمه‌اش رو مسلماً روی سایت خواهیم گذاشت. Thank you, Grierson. Thanks very much for allowing me to introduce the show to our audience inside Iran.
My pleasure. This is really very exciting for me to be doing this simulcast with you because of the importance of the new Iran. And I wonder if you would share with listeners, Dr. Foroutan, what's going on in Iran that makes the new Iran that you are spending so much of your volunteer time as well as your own money on developing. Please share with listeners the importance of this.
Well, thank you. As you and your audience may know, 32 years ago, Iran was overtaken by a bunch of people, starting with Ayatollah Khomeini, who basically fooled the Iranian people to a better life. After 32 years, the situation in Iran has gotten so bad economically, culturally, financially, and basically all levels of life. In the last 32 years, these people who are fanatic Muslim people, they have been killing and torturing tens of thousands of people. They basically have no respect for women. They cut hands, gouge eyes out. They hang people in the streets just because they want some freedom or they want freedom of speech. They do all this in the name of God. Iran, the Islamic Republic, I would like to make a very important distinction between the Iranian people and the Islamic clergy that rules Iran. Iranian people, 32 years, and even right now, they are the biggest supporter of the Western countries and especially United States. When 9/11, September 11 happened, Iranian people were the only community society in Middle East that took out to the streets in support of the United States with candles in hand, tens of thousands in the streets against the will of the government. They are peaceful people. They're very hospitable people. Now, the clergy, on the other hand, who are ruling Iran, have made Iran the biggest supporter of terrorism around the world. They're the #1 supporter of Hezbollah. They're the #1 supporter of South Lebanon and Hamas. They are #1 supporter of Assad in Syria. In fact, the Islamic Republic has sent 5,000 or 6,000 police and armed people to kill the Syrian people. And so the situation is getting worse and worse by day. Now, obviously, what you hear day in and day out in the international media is the nuclear threat of the Islamic Republic, which is absolutely very, very real. The Islamic Republic has been killing its opponent, the members of opposition like myself, in Europe, in the United States, around the world. They have been massacring their own people, as you probably remember last year when they shot Neda in the streets and obviously thousands of more. So imagine if they had a nuclear weapon, there would be no mercy to the world. The people running Iran, like Ahmadinejad, the madman who would like to wipe off Israel off the face of the earth, or Khamenei, who believes in the 12th Imam, who is going to come and bring with him apocalypse. They actually dream of the day that they can have a nuclear weapon and come and tell you, your audience, myself, and everybody else in the world, give us a 24-hour deadline or 48 hours deadline, call us infidels, give us 2 days deadline to become and turn into the Islam that they believe in, and otherwise go ahead and attack us. So the situation in Iran is very bad, and it's getting worse by the day. The New Iran, since you asked, is an organization that as of right now has over 4,000 registered members, with over 50% from inside Iran. Remember, the society in Iran right now is such as, even this broadcast that we're doing live inside Iran, the signals are being scrambled by the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic has these trucks that they send into the streets. They send out these beams to the houses to scramble the illegal satellite dishes that a lot of the Iranian people have on their roofs, such that they cannot hear me, they cannot hear the outside world. They make the internet to be so slow, actually to the crawling speed. They actually turn off internet so people cannot send messages or have access to the world. So basically, they're very fearful, and the New Iran has used the technology, this voting technology and the social networking technology. For the first time in the last 32 years, the New Iran is the first ever grassroots, bottom-up organization that has brought people together, has actually held online elections using the technology from people who are outside Iran, that we can authenticate their identity, gets direct response and polls from people inside Iran, and now it's probably perhaps the most, if not one of the most believed in and trusted sources of freedom and beacon of freedom outside Iran. And we have a lot of plans and hopes that I would discuss with you and with your audience as this interview goes forward.
How difficult is it to assure that all you're doing in terms of trying to reach out within Iran to the Iranian people, how can you be sure the message is getting there if in fact the government there now is doing so much to make sure your message doesn't get through?
Well, television is only one of the few means that we communicate with the people in Iran. And the New Iran is not the only opposition group outside Iran. Email works very well. People who are outside, they have family and friends inside, they talk to them. And the New Iran also is not the only television broadcast or radio broadcast into Iran. So one of the more productive things that the opposition has done over the last 32 years outside Iran is that, especially in the last decade or so, is to constantly inform the Iranian people through all kinds of means, shortwave radio, newspaper, internet articles, television programs, about the shortcomings of the regime, about their brutality, about all the bribery, all the stealing and plummeting the Iranian assets, the Iranian people's assets. And obviously, as you remember, 2 years ago, the Iranian people themselves, they are fed up and they know it. Remember the millions of people who got out in the streets with the so-called Green Revolution 2 years ago, where, during the elections, which was really a totally false election results. Now, the Iranian people very smartly, I should add, decided to take advantage of the situation inside Iran at that time, and within the framework of the crooked Islamic Republic's constitution, get out in the streets and say, where's my vote? Because it was very obvious that they supposedly, many of them wanted one candidate, and they ended up to getting Ahmadinejad again. But very quickly after that, we're showing these images on the screen of the live broadcast for some of your viewers who may actually be watching the show live. But very quickly, within a week or so, when the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei came on TV and basically said he would crush any disobedience of his rules or any demonstrations, people did not give up. They changed their slogans and the placard from "Where is my vote?" to "Down to the dictator." And since then, it became very obvious that millions and millions of people, we estimate over 85 to 90% of the Iranian people, are ready for a regime change. They do want a regime change, and they're willing to face the brutality of the regime, if they have some hope that they can basically overthrow this regime non-violently, I should add. New Iran is a non-violent organization. We're a registered 501c4 not-for-profit organization in the United States, and all the volunteers in this organization, including myself, everybody's a volunteer. We just put whatever we can, whatever capabilities that we have or finances we have to help this movement to grow and grow fast, because time is short. The window of opportunity is not going to last for long, and we believe in 2012 we do have an opportunity by removing the Islamic Republic from Iran to actually help for a safer world, to cut off the hands of the supporters of terrorism in Middle East, give peace negotiations between Israel and Palestine a better chance, and actually move towards a much, much better and safer world for all of us.
I want to remind listeners that we are talking with Dr. Iman Foroutan of the New Iran, and this is a special simulcast on Iranian TV, which you can view by going to thenewiran.com. And I would also encourage each listener to take a look through that website. Some of the information and videos there are graphic. You can see demonstrations and brutality and get a sense of what the Iranian people are actually going through and why the New Iran is so important to create a democratic, secular, and pro-human rights form of government in Iran. Dr. Foroutan, what was the catalyst for your involvement in this?
I will tell you my story, but I'm sure tens of thousands of other Iranian volunteers outside Iran have similar stories. I came to the United States in 1975 after I finished high school in Iran. That was 2.5 years before the revolution. I went to Oregon State University for 2 years and then University of California, Irvine. In 78, my parents had retired. They also came with my family to the United States. For about 10 or 15, 20 years, I was totally naive as far as what goes on inside Iran. I'd come outside. I was going, continuing my education and trying to make something out of myself, exactly what I hope to be able to do for my countrymen inside Iran. But it was about a decade ago, in year 2000, when the satellite television, similar to where we're broadcasting from right now, was started in the Iranian community outside Iran. I bought one of those for my parents so they would actually keep in touch with what goes on inside Iran. And it was then that I started watching these programs and hear and listen to the cry of help for the Iranian people, mothers crying because of their children being killed, the beatings, the lack of freedom, just the closed society, which was not at all what I was used to. When I left Iran, Iran was basically very similar to many of the advanced, modern, democratic societies that exist today. That's when I decided that if I do not do something, then nobody else will. My generation may be really the last generation who could actually do something, because our children, they're born here in the United States or Europe, and they do not really relate to their ancestry inside Iran. So that was really the cause for me. But when you talk to many Iranians outside, every single one of them has a similar story, and a small percentage of us actually do care and come forward. We're hoping that by making a big deal out of this through conversations with organizations in media such as Conversation Crossroad, we can also attract the younger Iranians who may not actually watch the Persian satellite, and they watch the the mainstream media. And that's one of our tactics to actually get more of the second generation Iranians, because we believe the time is now, and we have a fantastic, great opportunity both for the people of Iran and also the world for a much safer world without the Islamic Republic.
I was so glad, Dr. Foroutan, at the top of the show that you mentioned that it was the Iranian people contrary to the folks in government in Iran now, who actually, when 9/11 occurred, were in support and in sympathy for the United States. And I think it's so important for listeners here in America to know that behind the face of government in Iran are so many people who need our support and need our help, be it money, be it technology, be it volunteerism, to help overcome the regime there now and to create the kind of democracy and human rights driven organization that will enable the people not only to thrive and be in control of their destinies, but literally to protect them physically from the kind of harm and brutality that we just are unaware of here in the United States. It's part of Iranians' everyday life of having the most torturous things done to them. And my heart goes out to the Iranian people, and I want to reassure them that the reason we are doing this forecast and simulcast now is that
you stop talking, Grierson? Can you hear me? Hello?
we seem to have a connection problem. Dr. Foroutan, if you would call in again, that would be terrific.
I will do so.
And
I will call
as
back.
I was saying to our listeners, it is with heartfelt
Can you hear me now, Grierson?
We can hear you now, Dr. Foroutan.
Okay.
And we seem to have a little bit of a connectivity problem. I wanted to remind listeners we're speaking with Dr. Iman Foroutan of the New Iran, and we are simulcast to Iranian TV. We are literally talking to the people of Iran now, and you can go to thenewiran.com and see this broadcast as it's happening live, as well as take a look through the website and get an understanding of why this simulcast is so important. And I want to reassure the people of Iran that the reason we are doing it today is we hear you. We know what you're going through. You are not alone. And our hearts go out to what you have to experience and endure, as well as your families, your friends, your neighbors. And we want, as much as you do, for you to have a democratic, secular, and human rights driven form of government that will enable you to thrive. We thank you from our hearts for aligning yourselves with us. When the tragedy occurred on 9/11, we know that in the face of a government that felt differently, you were there for us. You believed in us, just as today we believe in you. And this is why we are doing what we can for you, for the New Iran, for Dr. Iman Foroutan, to help get the word out, to give you the tools, the resources, the people, the technology you need to create the kind of existence you so deserve and are so entitled to, simply by virtue of the fact that you are integral members of the human community. Dr. Foroutan, for listeners here in the States, would you take a moment to define what is meant by the IRI?
Absolutely. IRI stands for Islamic Republic of Iran. We usually refer to them of Islamic Republic in Iran, replacing of with in, meaning that they have overtaken with non-Farsi, non-Persian, non-Iranian, but rather Arabic ancestry. They've come and taken over our country. We believe that this Islamic Republic is neither Islamic nor is a republic. It is not Islamic because they have their own fanatic way of Islamic, like Osama bin Laden and Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And they're not a republic because they have all fraudulent elections. So it's basically a name. In fact, they use a very well-known principle of the Shia, which is a special sect of the Islamic regime, Islamic faith, which is called Taqiyya. Taqiyya basically means that people can go and lie, sign contracts with false intentions and no intentions of signing anything if they believe that in the long term it's going to help their faith, which is Islam. That is why over the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, Islamic Republic has signed all kinds of false documentations with the International Atomic Energy and all United Nations and stuff. That's why we do not encourage the United States and the 5+1 European countries to go and sit one more time with the Islamic Republic for negotiations. That has been a delaying tactic for over 10 years. United States and Europeans have known about Islamic Republic lying tactics for at least 15 years. Remember that Islamic Republic for 18 years hid all their atomic and nuclear activities. It only came to light about 10 years ago when some organization came out and brought up some photos and to the world and said, hey, look what the Islamic Republic is doing. And since then, they've been lying and cheating, and that's really what IRI stands for. And here we are at the crossroads. Everybody that you listen to, they say Iran is not a simple choice. You have to pick worse, bad or worse. But we have to have an action now. And we believe, the new Iran believes that unlike the general wisdom that there's only two ways to deal with the Islamic Republic. One, to have negotiations with the mullahs and try to convince them that what they're doing is not a good thing. Or two, have a military attack by the United States and or Israel. Unlike those beliefs, the new Iran believes there is still a window of opportunity for the most powerful and a third path to this problem. And that is a direct support of the Iranian people inside and direct support of opposition groups such as the new Iran outside. The Iranian people are ready to pay the big price of freedom. As we have seen, they are ready and willing to be killed, to be tortured, to go in front of the bullets. We have seen it over and over again. They just need the moral support of the United States, of the United States Senate, of President Obama administration, European countries, to start something similar to what happened a decade ago with regards to the Eastern European countries and the Russian Federation. A weekly 1-minute voice message from President Obama or Mrs. Merkel or Sarkozy or other leaders to the Iranian people. We are with you. This regime must go. This regime is barbaric. They're not asking for military support. They're not asking for any favors. To open the communication means. Right now, as I said, this signal, this broadcast is being scrambled in Iran. Even those who have access, they barely probably can hear me or see me, especially now that Grierson, you are online. They don't want to know, the Iranian people know that the new Iran has a voice such that a well-respected radio program like yours talks to us. But Voice of America, which is supported by United States, which is paid for by the taxpayers of the United States, they are not standing for freedom and democracy the way they should. They still bring these pro-reformist people from inside the Islamic Republic to their program. If one were to listen to the Voice of America, you would not really know that Voice of America is standing for freedom the way they're supporting these reformist movement, which means another generation of Islamic Republic, but with another face rather than Ahmadinejad, maybe without beard this time, a little bit more smile, but the same concept of torture, of lying and cheating, and continuation of building atomic weapons. So we need the administration to finally come to its senses. The policy of 2.5 years of the so-called appeasement obviously did not work with the Islamic leaders. They went ahead with their lies and they went ahead with building the nuclear weaponry. There is still time to support the Iranian people if they know, and once they know that this West is serious, and I think there are signs right now that they can believe that, then they will go to the street. There is a huge fight amongst the different factions inside the Islamic Republic, the pro-Ahmadinejad and pro-Khamenei and the pro-police and Pasdaran and Basij. They're fighting. New evidence every day comes out from their briberies, from their stealings, billions of dollars that they steal from the Iranian banks. Just yesterday, the European Union decided on principle to boycott buying Iranian petroleum. That by itself, plus the recent vote by the United States Senate of 100-0 vote to put the Iranian central bank on the list of money laundering banks in the world. Those two actions alone will very shortly cripple the Iranian government such that they will not have the money to bribe their supporters, to actually pay the soldiers and the military that are supporting them, to actually subsidize the way they subsidize the people. Your audience may not know, about 6 or 8 months ago, the Iranian government was forced to cut the biggest amount of subsidy from the average person. Average person's utility bills all of a sudden went up by 400, 500, 800% overnight. People do not have money for electricity, for food. The average Iranian person has to work 2 to 3 jobs to even just bring food to their tables. There's stories after stories that a poor father, an old man, is sitting with his wife and the kids on the floor to have some food, knowing well that his daughter had to go and sell her body as prostitution to bring that food to that table. We have recordings, we have audio, we have video. The people who are watching the television stations right now, they will see the poverty that the people are going through, while Iran is one of the richest countries in the world. I had a program yesterday when we calculated that with like 1 day's or 2 days income from the oil sales that we do, they can actually provide tens of thousands of free 1 or 2 or 3 bedroom apartments to the people. Not that the way to go, but just to give you a comparison or an idea of the amount of money. With 1 day's worth of money, you could buy like 400,000 Toyota Corolla 2011 from dealerships to make the smog and the environment better. There's just so much that can be done, but there's a lot of stealing there. And most importantly, to at least your listeners in the United States, this is not just for the people of Iran. This is for the people of the United States. This is for the people of Europe. I promise you, we promise you, the moment the Islamic Republic has its hands on a nuclear weapon, they're going to use it. No ifs, no buts. They will use it. They will attack. They will attack the United States military bases and whatever around the world, around in Middle East. They'll probably try to close the Strait of Hormuz. They will probably attack Israel. One of the biggest wishes of Islamic Republic is to start a war, because in the past they have shown when there is a war, then they can actually get the people around the government saying, look, you see, Israel is attacking us, US is attacking us, we must all come together. So one of the worst things that can happen is an attack or a military attack by the United States or Israel or anybody else. Unfortunately, we're coming very close to that decision. We believe there is at least 6 months to a year time for direct support of the Iranian people. Now, the average audience of your program may not know what to do. They can call their Congress people, they can call their senators, they can call the White House and ask for direct support of the Iranian people and a call for regime change by President Obama's administration. And or they can come to organizations like the newiran.com, a transparent 501c4 not-for-profit organizations who people like me, we have jobs, we have corporations, we work, we have nurses and mothers and kids, all ages, but 51% or 56% of the registered users to New Iran are from inside Iran. Come and support us. We will get the word out. I think there's a huge momentum going on. We are working right now in the New Iran to put together a transitional council together. We have already developed a post-IRI, post-Islamic Republic roadmap such that we will not have the trouble and the problems that we had in Iraq and Afghanistan or Tunisia or Egypt or Libya. So the world will know who they're dealing with. They're dealing with a group of sophisticated, like you said, people who believe in a secularism, secular government, modern government, democratic government, pro-human rights. One last thing that I would like to add to this question of yours is that unlike what has happened recently in the so-called Arab Spring, Iran, we believe, is the only, perhaps, but most sophisticated society that it is ready for a democratic future. See, with countries like Tunisia or Libya or even Egypt and whatever, this is their first time that they're getting to freedom. They have never had an experience with freedom. They have never really had an experience with voting or elections. The large percentage of the society are illiterates. Inside Iran, however, a large percentage of people are literate. 55% of the people who go to universities are women. These people have, at least for the last 30 years, at least exercised voting and elections, even though the results have always been rigged. So unlike the other Arab Springs countries, that there is a big chance that may actually, now that things have changed and the dictators are gone, there is a big chance that they may actually turn to fanatic Islamic countries, even including Iraq, because that foundation was not there for democratic society. Iran, on the other hand, is the only one that is ready to do that. And we believe by Iran becoming a secular democratic society in the Middle East, it will actually balance the difference in power between these other communities and societies that may take a decade or so to actually get to the path of democracy. Another important reason why we should support organizations like the New Iran and the New Iran movement, not only to support the people of Iran, but for the betterness of the life outside Iran, especially in the United States and the European countries that would be the first target of the Islamic Republic with their nuclear weapons or any other bad intentions that they may have.
I am so glad that you brought up, Dr. Foroutan, that this is not simply a cause or a need that's happening somewhere on the other side of the world that we can choose or not to make a difference. This affects us potentially and directly here in the United States, and it is in our vested interest to do what we can, especially through the new Iran, to help the people of Iran to achieve their freedom. We're talking with Dr. Iman Foroutan of the new Iran, and we're simulcast with Iranian TV. You can see the live broadcast by logging on to the newiran.com, and there is a place down in the bottom right of the home page where you can log on, or rather click the link and go right to the simulcast and see Dr. Foroutan and myself as we talk about these very, very important issues. In addition to contacting their congressman, what else, Dr. Foroutan, can the average American do to make a difference in the lives of the Iranian people?
Organization like the New Iran, who really has, until this point, has no funding from any other source, but people that come on and volunteer their time and volunteer a few dollars here and there, they need all the resources to actually implement our plans. For example, right now we only have 7 hours of live broadcast into Iran. This is at the cost of about $35,000 a month that we try to put together from these volunteers. We really need to have a 24/7 television program inside Iran, which, as you know, will need a studio, we need some staffing, and so on. One of the best ways for the people inside Iran, one of the only ways that they have access, the majority of the people inside Iran, that they have access to information, to what is going on outside Iran and actually get their messages out, is internet. But the internet inside Iran is controlled by the government. Unfortunately, some of the countries outside, like Siemens in Europe, in Sweden and whatever, they've actually knowingly or unknowingly provided the Iranian government with software that tracks people. So the government goes and finds people, who they talk to, which site they visited. So the internet is very much policed, and the internet is very slow. We can hardly get a video signal from inside Iran. People who are right now, some of them are inside the chat room that as we speak right now, they have to use VPN accounts, virtual private networks accounts. The new Iran so far has given over close to 4,000 VPN accounts free of charge to people inside Iran. They contact us with an email address, we send them a package, they install on their computers, and that allows them to break through the filter lines of the Islamic Republic and get to the outside world. Our site, thenewIran.com, was filtered 8 days after its launch, September of 2010. That's how quickly they actually, come and close these. So we need budgets or equipment to actually provide VPN accounts to people. So maybe one of your audiences has an ISP or has a company that can provide servers and internet. So not everything is money. We actually need people who can help us with ideas, people who have knowledge of this type of civil disobedience programs, people who can help us in communications, in security of communications. So both between Iranians and Americans, I think we can come up with some fantastic ideas how to independently and without direct support of governments to go people of the world against the regime. Imagine how powerful that would be. We would like to take what happened in Tahrir Square in Egypt to another level. New Iran is the only site right now that is using the patented voting technology that my company has for online voting. We have had 6 or 7 elections on our website that you can go and see, that people come, we automatically authenticate their identities and vote. We have actually implemented a way that people who do not have computers, do not even understand internet inside Iran, they call our phone line, we encrypt their phone numbers, we send the message all around the world, and we automatically register them as a user of the new Iran. So our request to your audience is that come and visit our website, see what we're trying to do. We have a 4-point plan that we believe will get us to the freedom of Iran very shortly. Number 1 is to actually finalize the development of the post-IRI plan, roadmap, which means what will happen to Iran, to the society, what kind of a justice system we will have for all these people. Remember, these police and the people who work for the government, not all of them support the government. A lot of them, we would like to dare to say, majority of them hate the government. They just don't know what's going to happen to them once the regime falls. So if we come up with some type of an amnesty program that they can believe in, like what happened in South Africa, so their fear is reduced. That's one of the main things, which is a post-IRI roadmap. The second thing is actually training of civil disobedience programs, which is one of the things that New Iran is doing. Civil disobedience could be actually distribution of flyers, turning off your lights at a special time, Thursday nights at 9 p.m. as a signal to the world, as an SOS sign of help to the world, and many other programs that we have been working on, and we're trying to get the training out to the people inside Iran. The third one is to actually create a transitional council. A democratic transitional council can actually give this trust to the people of the world, to the government, to the people of Iran, that there are people in charge who know what they want, and we are going to help the opposition inside Iran, who will be the main forces to take over this regime, to really transition to a democratic and secular government. And number 4, a point in our 4-point plan is to let the world know that we exist and the Iranian people exist, and that's through media, through conversations, with Conversation Crossroad and your audience, so they know we exist. The time is right, and so any which way that your audience can help us, can guide us, and just talk to us, that would be fantastic, because those people, that father and mother, those kids who are right now watching us inside Iran, believe me, Grierson, their heart is full of hope. They know they're not alone. They will go and tell their neighbors. They say, you know what happened? This American guy called Grierson, they may not be able to pronounce your name probably, but this American radio, they were online. They talked to New Iran. They're hearing us. They're working. They're trying to get us free internet, free VPN and stuff. Hope is the most important thing. We need to provide hope, but in addition to hope, we need to have a plan, we need to have a systematic approach, and that's what New Iran is proud of. We believe we can do that. We're very close. The world is ready, and with the help of you, your audience, and the rest of the people of the world, we can absolutely, certainly, no question asked, overcome this regime of darkness, of tyranny, of torture, and this regime that is killing both the Iranian people and ultimately the people of the world.
Dr. Foroutan, do folks who want to get involved and help, do they contact you through thenewiran.com?
Absolutely. They can go to newiran.com. There is a link, contact link at the bottom of the screen. They do not have to be a member of the site or registered to the site to contact us. They can simply send an email saying, I'm such and such, here's my phone number, here's my email, I heard you, how can I help, or I would like to help. They can actually visit the site. The site is in both English and Farsi. We have an organization chart with different departments, from technology department, women's department, civil disobedience department, finance department, marketing department, all the things that a organization, solid organization need. They can come and volunteer a few hours a day or a week over there. There's a donate button at the top of the site. They can click there, and if they wish on a regular basis or a one-time donate, New Iran is not, donations to New Iran is not tax deductible. We're not a 501c3 because we actually would like to be able to talk to the politicians and actually try to influence their decision regarding to help the people of Iran. But they can send an email. There's also a phone number at the very top of the site that people can call. We usually man that phone number at least 8 to 10 hours, 12 hours a day, but they can certainly leave a message and someone from the New Iran will contact them, and we'll be more than happy to hear from your audience.
I want to also tell Conversation Crossroad listeners that on conversationcrossroad.com there is a web page dedicated to Dr. Iman Foroutan and the New Iran. You can read about the mission, the principles, and everything that this fine organization is trying to do on behalf of the Iranian people. You can take the link to that web page if you know of a company, an organization that has the capability, the technology to further the cause of the New Iran. Email the people you know there, send them a copy of the web page. The web page contains a link to today's interview, which after today will become the podcast, so you can listen to the interview over and over again. If you know someone who has the technological capability or the financial resources to help, to get involved, email them the web page, tell them to listen to the interview, suggest ways they might want to get involved, and basically start a grassroots campaign to help the Iranian people. And if you ever wondered or had a question about doing something like this, check out thenewiran.com. Watch the videos. If you are not absolutely moved and motivated by what the Iranian people are going through, the very things that they experience in terms of brutality, you have to see these videos to truly understand what's happening over there and grab hold of the fact that you can make a difference. In fact, we have an obligation to make a difference. This is not just about something happening on the other side of the world. What's happening in Iran and what can happen through the New Iran and Dr. Foroutan affects us. It affects the United States. Whatever happens in Iran, good or bad, is going to come down to affecting us here in America. So I heartily encourage you, visit the New Iran Crossroad.com. Go to Conversation Crossroad, reach out, contact the New Iran, see how the many ways you can get involved. And again, I want to reiterate to the people of Iran who are listening to this simulcast and who can listen to the podcast if they're not online now. We hear you. We're halfway around the world. We hear you. We're coming to your rescue. We are trying to help. We are supporting the New Iran, and you're not alone. I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Iman Foroutan for not only coming on Conversation Crossroad today and talking about the New Iran and what's happening in Iran, but for pulling together the technological resources, making this simulcast happen. As you heard him say, there's only so many dollars that enable him to have a few broadcasts a month to the Iranian people. They certainly need to have a continuous inflow of information through these TV simulcasts so that they are reassured moment to moment ongoing that we're behind them, we support them. And again, I want to reiterate, we're not talking about the regime in power now. We are talking about the Iranian people themselves who so badly need and want the kind of government that we have here that, in all due respects, many times we just take for granted. They deserve the safety, the security, the happiness that we are entitled to here. Dr. Foroutan, any closing words?
Dear Grierson, I really thank you, Conversation Crossroad, and obviously your listeners that have listened to this program. As you're speaking, there are people in the room here in the internet chat, at least one or two of them are from inside Iran. They're sending you and your audience flowers. They're sending their heart. They're thanking you for hearing them. And that's really all that they're asking for the outside world to hear them. They will take the big fight on their own. They just need moral support of the American people to help them get rid of this regime that at the end would not only help them, but will help the rest of the world. One more time, thank you for this opportunity. And they all wish you well and send you flowers and their heart from all around the world on the website.
Thank you, Dr. Foroutan, and to the people of Iran, we look forward to working with you. To our Conversation Crossroad listeners, thank you for being part of today's simulcast on Iranian TV. And again, you can go to conversationcrossroad.com, listen to the podcast of today's interview with Dr. Iman Foroutan, and certainly go to thenewiran.com and get involved. This is Conversation Crossroad. This is Grierson Lakem, your host, and on behalf of Betty Lynn White and I, be safe, think of others, get involved, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
خب هموطنان عزیز، وقت برنامه ما به پایان رسیده. همونطوری که احیانا اگر اول برنامه دیده بودید، این اولین مصاحبه یک رادیوی پرشنونده آمریکایی بود با نهاد مردمی. جزء پروژه‌ای که نهاد مردمی داشت، جزء طرح کلان نهاد مردمی که نه تنها با بین خودمون و عزیزان داخل کشور صحبت کنیم، جهانیان باید بدونن که شما در داخل کشور چه میکشید. جهانیان باید بدونن که اپوزیسیونی هست در خارج از کشور که برنامه داره، نقشه داره و آدم‌های فناتیکی مثل این ملاها نیستند. امثال کسانی که در نهاد مردمی 4000 خورده نفر هستند که با ایثار، با گذاشتن وقت، پول، فکر و ایده دارن زحمت میکشن و مطمئن باشید که تمام این تلاش‌ها وقتی دست به دست هم بده باعث خواهد شد به اون نتیجه‌ای که هممون خواهیم رسید. وقت برنامه ما الان تموم شده. اون تبلیغ اگر لازم باشه انگلیسی رو میذاریم، لوگوی برنامه رو میبینیم و مسلماً این برنامه ترجمهش رو خواهیم کرد، روی سایت خواهیم گذاشت، برای اینکه این ویدیو رو روی سایت همین رادیو هم خواهند گذاشت و این رادیو از اون رایدایی هست که برنامه‌شون بازپخشش بعد از پخش زنده این رو خواهند شنید. با تشکر از اینکه تحمل کردید یک ساعت برنامه‌ای که به زبان فارسی نبود، ولی امیدواریم که نتیجه و بازده خوبی داشته باشه. شب و روز شما بخیر. خدا نگهدار پاینده ایران ما. بابای.
32 years ago, extremists hijacked Iran. But they did not represent the Iranian people who were stripped of their freedom and basic human rights by a totalitarian regime that imprisons, tortures, and kills its people simply for wanting a better life. Today, our security is also being threatened by this same regime. But it wasn't always that way. Historically, Iran was called Persia and was the first civilization to put human rights into law. And before the Islamic Revolution, Iran was a growing, thriving center of culture and industry. Now, 80 million Iranians are trapped under a repressive and dangerous regime, and they want change. They want peace, democracy, and human rights, and they're ready to make it happen themselves. But they need your help. Support the new Iran and help build a better, safer world for all of us. Learn more, take a stand, choose a side. thenewiran.com.
آینده ایران در دستان شماست. نهاد مردمی